What you are about to hear will blow your mind and give you six-pack abs without even exercising.
Pull up a bar stool and relax.
Hey, who wants to have some fun?
You've made it to Happy Hour with John Gaskins.
Oh, no. Not again.
Get ready for entertaining local and regional sports talk that will change your life. Or not.
And by the way, when you're telling these little stories, here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
Here's your host, John Gaskins.
Here's Johnny. Hello! Ah!
I'm back, baby! I'm back!
Here we are, Jackrabbit Media Day in Brookings, and we're in the old coach's office. Now it's an office next to the head coach's office in the Stiegelmeier Center, just above, one story above the field, the end zone, Dana J. Dykhouse Stadium. We'd love for you to be able to see it behind us, but lighting works out better here. It feels like we're on a TV set almost, and I am with the man who's this facility is named after, John Stiegelmeier, 26-year head coach, national champion on the way out. You know that. He's heading into his fourth season not being the coach and working for the SDSU Foundation. And he just got back from Canton, Ohio to watch one of his former players, Adam Vinatieri, be inducted. So we'll talk about that experience. It's just good to see you. You were walking down the hallway, and we are right next door to your old office. And, of course, people are stopping you and saying hi. And so you're still kind of here in a way. You're just not out there. Is that weird to not be out there?
Well, it is weird, especially this time of year. As a football coach, it's football time, if you will, and I get asked all the time, do I miss it? I miss everything about it. Yeah. Every long day, every film session, every player meeting, which means I'm summing up why I say I was blessed beyond to have the job. And this is like a TV set because they take a lot of pictures in here during recruiting.
There you go. I see.
And so it's kind of cool the way it's set up.
For those who can't see it, you got some old lockers, I'm sure, from the old locker rooms with a couple letter jackets and Jack's jerseys. And we got the old bench, too. Must be an old bench from old Coughlin alumni or maybe even before that. But you always say, you've been saying this now for 3 years, that you do miss it. You miss almost everything about it. Where does this time of the calendar, mid-August, 2 weeks away from the first game, so you're kind of entrenched into fall camp now, and that's becoming a routine, hot days, and just practice. Where does that rank in the stuff that you miss the most?
I think I miss the most. I know I do. The personal part. The player relationships and the coaches' strategy and literally putting our heads together and trying to figure out what we think is the best. Yeah. Where does the grind? I woke up this morning early and I thought, is Dan Jackson up yet? And I know he was up. Yeah. And so the grind, the term grind is hard. I mean, it's negative, but some things you embrace, and that's one of the things you embrace. I would love to be out there in that field, saying in the back of my mind that DB's got to be a little lower and write that down and suggest that to the coach. So I miss it.
Well, so that's generally what you're doing as the head coach. You didn't oversee either offense or defense. You're taking your notes, but are you sharing those notes in real time or just later on?
Later on.
It's all over.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had always done this in some way, shape, or form, but we went on a professional visit to Wisconsin. Brett Bielema was the head football coach. We went over to learn defense, ask questions and stuff, which is one of the ways you grow as a football coach in a program and a staff. And I watched him walk around with a manila folder taking notes, and it was so honoring because I got 15 minutes with him at the end of the day, and he took out that same manila folder. And he asked me, what'd you see today in practice? He was asking me, a guy in the Big Ten, And it just reinforced how important. He was going to write those notes on the notes for the day. So back to your statement, I apologize.
It's okay.
I would never say that on the field. If the most blatant error on the field, I would never correct a coach.
Sure.
That coach has got to be the expert to his players. And so in this room, the staff room, and in their private meeting room, in general, I might say, hey, men, we're teachers. Right? Were you prepared for your meeting today? I stopped in on a couple meetings and I didn't see the lesson on the board. I didn't see the notes on the board, and just continually reinforcing the way I was taught to be a football coach.
Interesting. And at the same time, what else are you looking for? Because you're looking at the micro, and you said, the DB's stance or the way he's moving or whatever. But then there might be the macro. I've heard stories of you, and this isn't uncommon, I'm sure, to any head coach, where whether it's fall camp or during the season or spring, if a practice is just overall dragging to some degree, I've heard stories about you just blowing the whistle really loud and hard, and that means get over here, and you kind of had to kick everybody into high gear, right?
Well, I didn't do that very often. You have to. You have to, evaluate the situation. If things are dragging, like you say, I wasn't much for yelling at guys, because if you yell at them, you got to yell at them all the time to get their attention. And I just was standing beside Tony Dungy at this Hall of Fame event, and I remember seeing him as the Vikings coordinator. It was so impressive. He's out on the field. The wind's blowing, and he's talking normal.
Yeah.
And I thought that's so impressive that those guys have to strain to hear it, but he's not gonna change. He's not gonna say, I've got to yell at you to get you to be motivated. So I did stop practice on a fight. We always did up downs when guys fought, and I've been reading stuff about how guys think fighting in practice is good and this, that, and the other thing, and I felt fighting is a form of losing your control. Yeah. And football is a game of being in control, so I thought it was a teaching moment.
Well, is it true that you would have the two guys that would fight after the end of the practice hug each other?
We had a tradition that we start practice. I thought this was really cool because I was the head coach. So, I'd make announcements, and then they'd find a guy on the other side of the ball. So an offensive guy would find a defensive guy, and they'd shake hands, and they would say, last play. All right. Now, what does that mean? In our program, it meant, and they still have this on the back of their helmets, I believe. Last play means you better practice, you better play, you better embrace every moment. It's like your last moment, because someday it will be your last moment. For these guys, their lifespan as a football player is short in reality, and so why not give it all? And then at the end, they found the same guy and said last play to reinforce. Sure. I think it became a tradition maybe and whatever, but I really wanted it to mean something. I'm going to practice my tail off for you, and you're on the other side of the ball.
So I know you've been to some practices. Is that still being done?
It is not. Well, I haven't been here at the start of practice or at the end, so maybe it is. I don't think it is. I'll get credit this. Coaches take a lot of stuff from other people, and they last play came from a guy named Luke Meadows, who was our offensive line coach.
Yep, I remember.
And he had a sheet in those old trailers we used to have on the east side in his meeting room. When you went out, there was a sheet that said, "How do you want to be remembered?" Yeah. Which really says last play.
Okay. Well, you bring up the trailers. I was going to bring up, if this was circa 2000 or 2005, this space didn't exist. It was in the air, right? Because this would have just been the open-aired end zone. These would be pine trees.
Pine trees,
We'd be in the middle of pine trees right now.
Planted by Warren Williamson, if you remember that name.
And even this facility was built, about circa 2010, 11, 12? But before the actual new quote-unquote stadium was built. And the room we're in right now, it's not a big room, it's not a small room, but it was big enough to hold your coaching staff meetings. And now they've expanded the staff to the point where they have to have it in an auditorium. The coaches' meetings in an auditorium. Is that correct? Or a bigger room.
Bigger room.
They
use one of the biggest meeting rooms to have, I believe. So.
And a micro example of that is Brian Bergstrom, who is your co-defensive coordinator with Jimmy Rogers your last couple of years before Jimmy took over as head coach, and Brian went on to Winona State. And now he's back here as the defensive coordinator. And at the time, first time around, he was also a position coach, and he doesn't have to do that anymore. How, in your mind, looking back to, because you were here through a lot of evolutions of investments, resources, how much of a difference do those little things make?
Sometimes it's immeasurable, but you do the things that help you.
Yeah.
And if you have an additional coach, an additional set of eyes, it can only help you. It's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I got to be careful with you because I got in trouble when I answered questions about budget years ago. You remember that conversation?
Just having nicer things.
I didn't know where you're going with that.
No.
So I'll give you an example. So we talked earlier before we recorded. I've been blessed to go to Vanderbilt's fall camp,
right.
and Clark Lee's the head coach, was one of our coaches, a phenomenal person, coach,
yeah.
dad, the whole deal. I was sitting in their staff room, and I think they had 51 people came in, and that didn't have everybody, right? They didn't have all of athletic training or all of, and so those staffs are huge. Ours is not even close to that, but I'll give you an example. At one point, we had the idea to have quality control. The coaches years ago were labeled. You have a full-time coach, you have a graduate assistant. They have different rules in terms of recruiting and what you can do on the field. And then quality control is like a fancy GA that can't coach. And we had that idea,
yeah, right.
Let's have one of those on each side of the ball, special teams, offense, defense, to do most of this film work to accelerate your week. In the NFL, they call them analysts. Division I, they call them analysts. I mean, literally full-time coaches, they don't coach. They just break down film. And Brad Seeley does that for the Eagles. Okay. I ran into him at Vinatieri's party, so we'll interweave a bunch of this
stuff. Very cool. But back to Dan being the man now. First of all, how often do you come here to the building, and how often do you go to practice?
Yeah, he's given me an open invitation. I will probably attend 6, 7 fall camp practices this year. I've only, because of schedule, I've been to one. This will be my second one to go out.
And what does he lean on you for? Like, what kinds of things, if he wants to get advice, or even maybe he asks for your observations of things? Take us in there to the conversations you may have with him.
I don't know if he leans on me for anything, because I've been removed and so many rules have changed so drastically in terms of how you manage a football program, how you build a roster, with NIL and with I would say early we talked more, and it was probably more about how does the budget work, how did I do scholarships, and he kind of knew that, but I think it was just reinforcing what he believed in at the time. I think it's so important that Dan Jackson understands who Dan Jackson is and who God made him to be, and he doesn't mimic anything I did or Coach Rogers did or anybody he was with.
What have you observed about him just in general, about the way he, and let's say practice, since we're watching one literally right now, covering one today, the way he goes about leading them, and also maybe just from either conversations you've had or just observations you've seen of him operate, how different, better, more comfortable things are from last August to this August? Because certainly the circumstances are a lot different.
Well, he's a natural head coach. There's nothing about being a head coach that he has to work on hard because it's foreign to him or it's awkward for him. And take all the things a head coach does, from the lowest, whatever it might be, answering questions about equipment, to staying in front of the press today and painting a clear picture in front of the players.
I don't know if I would call that the pinnacle of the profession, but okay.
Well, anyway, those are some of the things he does. Anyway, he's really, really good at that. What's different this year? Surely, whether it's relational or your job or whatever your job it is, one more year under your belt, it's easier. And so I think he's much more at peace. He's calmer, but he does such a great job. I don't think that would be easy to see. Yeah. I think that would be internal, not external.
Okay. The last few years, you're head coach. I'm just obligatory last few. I mean, you probably were ranked in the top 5 in the preseason polls each year. At that point, you were getting used to that, and picked to win the Valley, or you and North Dakota State neck and neck. So big expectations were something you were used to, and they were here last year. They were ranked, I'm sure, in the top 5 preseason poll last year, but it didn't end up to be the year that they thought it would be. And it feels like this year it feels even stronger because Chase Mason is back. They've got a lot more experience returning than most other teams in the country. When the expectations were high, is that something you worried about affecting players, coaches at all? Did it affect the way you operated at all as a head coach or a staff, or is that stuff that's easily blocked out this time of year?
I think it's a balancing act. I mean, you want to have – people ask me all the time, how are we going to be this year? We, meaning the Jackrabbit football program. And I say this, and this intersects with what you're asking. The guys that walk into this facility believe and have the grounds to believe, the proof to believe they're going to win a national championship, compete for a national championship. Now, that to me is a powerful statement because how many other programs are like that? I mean, they all say that. It's in their manuals. The coach says that. Yeah. But when you say it, is it in your heart? I mean, is it deep down inside the heartbeat of this program? And so with that comes top 5 rankings like you're talking about. Is that pressure? No, that's respect and how you handle it. If you talk about it too much, it becomes a distraction. But that's Dan and the other coach's job to say, you've earned this. Now, look, we got to prove it, right? So we'll remind you, but we got to prove it.
How many practices have you been to so far in fall camp?
Just one.
Okay, before this one today. So when you're out here, what are you looking for? I mean, is it kind of the same things you were looking for as a head coach? Just and by the way, what did you see out of the one that you've been to? That's a broad loaded question, either operationally or one unit, whatever.
What I see is great effort. Guys that I talked about last play, right? Guys that are practicing like it's their last play. What I really look for, how you started the question, I believe, is, and you're keeping me from this, is I like to be here during individual time. As we look out there, they're working on drills. I like to watch coaches coach. When it's team and everybody's going, how good are they going to be? You can't see that. You can't tell unless you get a coach's spot out in the middle, and then you still watch the film. Yeah. And so I really like to watch coaches coach. I referred to that earlier as a head coach about coaches being teachers. I'm a mathematician by trade. In theory, there's 2% are excellent coaches. By percent. And so we've had a lot of them here. But I'm talking about all coaches. Get into little statistics, the normal curve, and so on. So I'm sure you passed statistics.
I actually really liked statistics.
Did you?
I did. Yeah, it's part of my job actually, because there's a lot of stats, both as a play-by-play guy, and if I'm trying to formulate some sort of opinion about something, I better have stats to back it up. So it's it's fun. And certainly a guy, if you want to talk about specific coaches, I mean, the offensive coordinator, everybody, and I'm going to do this when I talk to Eric Eidness today, is there's all kinds of stats that float out there. It's the glitzy and glammy side of the ball. What I want to ask you about him is, obviously he was your offensive coordinator for years when this was rising to become a top 10 and then top 5 program, and he had Austin Sumner and Taryn Christian for multiple years. If you can remember vividly, once you get to the senior year of a proven, experienced quarterback like Austin Sumner in 2014, Taryn Christian in 2018, you get Chase Mason this year. He only has 9 games from last year under his belt, but we all know and see and understand his capabilities. When Eric's working with that, what do you remember about how he approaches that and how good it can get?
Well, he's very, very, very thorough. All right, he will give Chase will be prepared. All right, Chase will get all the information he needs. And then it depends on who that senior quarterback is, too, Is he a guy that wants all that stuff and can make the checks and give him 3 things, run the ball here or pass the ball there? But if it's this, some guys can do that. Well, Eric has the ability to do that and teach it and give it to a player in a digestible manner or system. And then he coaches on the field, I've been to a lot of practices. We talked about that. And there's a lot of coaches wait until the film session. Well, there's no better, I learned in college, there's no better time for knowledge of results, all right, to give it to them right after if you're learning a golf swing, you wouldn't take 100 swings and then watch the film and then go back. You would get instant feedback. It's no different out there. Eric does a great job with that. And most importantly, I think, and I don't think, I'm certain, Eric is a really good person. So he's not ever going to take the most important guy in a football team, which some coaches do also, and rip away at his belief in himself. He may take him in the side room and say, hey, you had a bad practice today. I recognize that. Why was that? What's going on? Yeah. But it's not going to be ever in front of anybody. He's a positive person that believes in people.
Okay. And then on the other side, what do you notice about Brian Bergstrom, round 2, this time as the sole defensive coordinator, and the way he leads, and therefore what we can expect out of his defense?
Brian, like Eric, I'm a defensive guy, so this question goes deeper into my knowledge and soul, if you will. Brian, like Eric, is a very, very good football coach, very smart football coach. Very thorough, like I said, football coach. I could not do what he's doing and watch practice and not have a position. So I think I respect him for that. And essentially his biggest position group are his defensive coaches. You know, the guys that are working with him on that side of the ball. He will work tirelessly. Again, defense is different than offense. Offense, you can punt. Defense, you don't get to punt. And so he will work tirelessly to create that game plan that when it's 3rd and 5 on the left hash and it's on the plus 30, he'll know what the best. He'll have researched it and have the best. Yeah. Does it work always? No, because we're dealing with human beings.
Right.
But he'll have the right answer that they've come up with.
Okay. A couple more inside football type of practice and 2026 things, and then we'll get to the fun stuff like your trip to Canton and your upcoming visit to Ames to see Jimmy Rogers. And this might sound like a dumb media question, so forgive me. Last year, the Jacks opened with Sacramento State, a good FCS team, should warrant your full attention, but they had Montana State, who ended up being the national champion the next week. The year you won the national title, last year, you opened with Iowa. You opened with the Iowa Hawkeyes, a good Big Ten team right away. So when we're here in mid-August, or with 2 weeks to go before game week, how much the Jacks have Stetson this year, but then they have Northwestern, a Big Ten team. How much are you working? Does the opponent dictate how much you work on opponent's stuff this early before game 1? I guess is what I'm asking.
Is that a dumb?
I don't know. Is it? Is it?
You started out there. No,
coaches
it's not.
And you're not coaching anymore, but the coaches in the time will try to give respect to the first opponent. Then they'll tell you years later, oh, yeah, we were getting ready for whoever all season long.
Number one, I would never trust what a football coach tells you. I wouldn't even repeat it because it's, and I can go through a lot of stories.
Probably why I'm not going to ask Dan this question because I don't even know if I trust him.
So they are going to focus on Stetson. They're going to focus solely on Stetson. The best way in my mind, and I think Dan aligns with this, I know Jimmy does, Coach Rogers, the best way to prepare is to look at did I get better today?
Yeah.
Not did I master the Stetson stuff? Did I get better? So if you're always working on getting, and you never reach your potential, or you wouldn't keep going to the weight room, you wouldn't keep running. So did I get better as a football player? You will be prepared for Stetson, and then you bury that, play in the present, and look at Northwestern.
Like here, so I'll just ask you specifically. Like when you had Iowa as game 1, were you perhaps getting more into the Hawkeyes schemes? Whatever it was the game week, or it's the game week for sure. But before the game week of game 1, more than maybe say if like a Drake was your first opponent.
No, but yes and no.
Okay.
The thing you can do with your opener is you can start your prep earlier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just have a week; you have a month of practice, and so depending on the schemes, depending on the opponent, you might start and add 2 days and kind of ease into it.
All right.
If you will. If you take a normal game week, you play, You give him Sunday off. You watch the film Monday, introduce a little bit, and then you get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. He's got a lot of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays or days to get ready because Friday's essentially a walkthrough. Okay. And so it's totally different regardless of the opponent of how much time you can spend on it. Yeah. Now, that also go back to Bergie and Eric, really smart football coaches, right? The fear there or the concern there was, well, let's put more in. Well, players are players. They can only master so much for those 60 minutes they play. So the danger of starting early is to put more offense and defense in, and that's not a good idea.
I mean, yes or no. It doesn't have to be a long, a nuanced answer. Are you more likely to put in more of your opponent's stuff when you have more experienced players that already have mastered the system?
Yes.
And
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you talked about Chase Mason. A quarterback starting out, Mark Gronowski playing as a true freshman in COVID, and then playing his last year, not at Iowa, but his last year here, had much more stuff, many more opportunities to change the game on the field after the call was made. So, yes.
Okay.
That's why they talk about in the pros, the NFL, these guys, they're the next quarterback, but they're going to have to kind of ease into it. They're talking about years to get to be the starter.
Put on the analyst's hat the best you can, and your expectations for this team. Just, you've been around the building, you know it more than anybody here in the media.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in a weird position to make a bold prediction or anything, but what does it feel like from the inside about how the potential this team has?
Well, again, I think I can answer that with the answer I used earlier. They walk into this facility, not because of the facility, but because of the number of guys that have built the tradition and the expectation here. And I'm talking about all 110 or 105 guys on all these teams. Yeah. They believe they can win a national championship. So I expect them to be in that talk, in that selection, in that opportunity. Is it hard to win a national championship? Yeah, it's really hard. Yeah. One team does it, 130 FCS programs. So that would be my vision for them, expectation for them. But again, we just talked about that. That's not what you talk about as a head football coach.
Yeah. Okay. So you just got the Canton experience. Adam Vinatieri was the kicker when you were defensive coordinator under Mike Daly, 1991 to 94. He's the second Jackrabbit and the second South Dakota native to ever go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Had you been there before?
Or is this
okay?
Nope.
So before we get into Adam, just for someone like me who's never made the trip but someday wants to, what can we expect?
Well, I like museums, all right? I think the history and the stories, whatever the theme is, well, the museum, if you will, the Hall of Fame is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the stories you can dig into. Now, you go on this weekend, on the weekend, it's like a feedlot. Yeah. There are so many people there. And so I'm going to go back someday. My wife and I will go back someday and spend some more quality time there. But it was that part of it was really special. And to be able to, and people laugh at me with this, but be able to go to a screen and touch the screen and see all the teams and touch the team and see all the inductees and touch a guy's name and then read his personal story and his NFL story and just, I thought, how cool is this? And I mean, it doesn't do anything doesn't take anything to create that, but I had access to the knowledge of all those guys. And so names that were familiar, names we competed against, or teams that we competed against. I'm kind of a Green Bay Packer fan because of Tucker Kraft and they're somewhat local. So I looked at probably a few more Packers than others, but it was really fun.
What kind of access did you have to Adam Vinatieri? How much did you get to see him? When? And what were the nature? Yeah. What was the nature of the conversation?
Well, let me go over what I experienced. So I got there Thursday, was delayed, and didn't have tickets for the game, the Hall of Fame game. So otherwise, I could have gone to that. They have a fashion show. They have a parade. They have a whatever. The next thing I went to was Friday night. I went to the gold coat or jacket ceremony. That was phenomenal. At that, Adam came to all the tables that he'd invited and visited with everybody individually. So that was it was a 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock with the ceremony and the meal and so on. And then Saturday I went to the enshrinement. I went to the Hall of Fame. I went to the enshrinement, and that night the Colts had a party for him at a vineyard. And so I went to that, obviously really fancy, really well done, and I was able to visit with him, take a picture with him there. That was after the enshrinement, and so the first thing out of his mouth was my humor okay, Coach?
Yeah.
Because if you listen to his speech.
Oh, I did.
And I simply said, you caught me off guard, and I smiled.
Was he always like that? Because that was a real, I mean, there were moments of sweetness and sentimentality, and made sure he wanted to be remembered as a great father, husband, teammate, all that. But, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of stand-up comedy there. It was kind of a swashbuckling speech. Was that the way he was when he was here?
I was told that's the way he was. I don't think you see that side of a player as a coach, or the whole player as a coach, good or bad, right? But I asked a couple people about this speech, and they said that's Adam.
Okay.
Now, that might be a McAfee kind of a DNA kind of trickling over, because that's kind of his personality.
Cordell was thinking maybe some of the same joke writers for the Tom Brady roast were joke writers for this. But did it surprise you, or for lack of a better word, bother you, that he didn't bring up his college alma mater in his speech the way a lot of players do?
Yeah, I would say I didn't. Surely I'm disappointed that didn't come up, but everybody has feelings for their experiences differently, and I don't think it's necessarily negative. It just wasn't one of the top things. He had 10 minutes, and he covered what he needed to cover. When I walked up to him and got my picture with him, and this is subjective, not objective, but it's been a long day. He's taken a ton of pictures. He's talked to all these guests at this event after, and he goes to this gal who's organizing. He goes, "Hey, it's my coach from South Dakota State," and there was a true excitement, I think, for us to be together. And so I'm gonna end with that feeling about South Dakota State and Anna Vinatieri.
Do you feel that I felt that he missed out on the opportunity to explain how, again, you only get so much time. But if you're trying to send the message of don't give up and believe in yourself, I mean, this is a guy who was benched by Mike Daly for a few games, still punted, and who Mike said was a better punter than a kicker. But, in Division II, he was missing extra points, gets benched, gets his job back, doesn't get drafted, goes to Europe for a year. I mean, how much do you know or feel like that point at SDSU, which is probably the low point of his football career post-high school, helped in some way him become the kicker that he did? Because you probably have some insight into how he went from that to a pro and the greatest ever.
Well, I think just like building this program, everything either adds to it or takes away from it, right? And so every experience Adam had along his journey, whether it was his time here or going to Florida and working with, I think, Blevins, the kicking coach, or whatever the guy's name was, going to Europe, going to New England, as I read about it, to motivate the veteran kicker, and didn't expect him to beat him up. All that stuff adds to it. I think your point is really, really powerful, though. His story is unbelievable. I mean, if I talk about people, young people especially, pursue your dream. Well, Adam defines that. He literally defines that. I mean, he was told you can't do it repeatedly along the way, and he just stuck. And I talked to his dad about that, and his dad said he's always been like that. When he sets his mind on something, he's going to go after it until it can't happen.
Did he just get a personal coach? I mean, what
Yeah, he went to I think it was Florida.
Okay.
And had a guy he worked with, and I'll send you an article.
Okay.
I read an article. The title of the article, kind of references what we're talking about. Yeah. Adam Vinatieri is the most unlikely guy to be in the Hall of Fame, and then it talks about his journey, just what we're talking about.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you for all of that insight, and you'll have more from Iowa State and watching Jimmy at Rogers operate the next time we chat with you. I mean, I was going to ask you about that, but you haven't been there yet. So let's just do that next time, sometime in September, and always enjoy chatting with you. It feels great that the second we arrived to spend a whole day here, that we started off talking to John Stiegelmeier, watching practice. So this was a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure for me, and like I've said, you do a tremendous job in your role, and it's always a treat to visit.
All right. John Stiegelmeier here on Happy Hour. Cheers. Hey, let's talk Jackrabbit defense on Jackrabbit Day here on Happy Hour. He leads the defense, Brian Bergstrom, second year as the defensive coordinator under Dan Jackson. Previously, a few years as co-defensive coordinator with Jimmy Rogers under John Stiegelmeier. And you were just mentioning how, and we're just sitting here 2 weeks before the season starts on Media Day. Players are lining up to take photos. How long have you been cumulatively at SDSU?
Well, the first time I was here for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And then left for 3 years, 2.5 years to be the head football coach at Winona State. And then now have been back for one season, about 1.5 years.
And by the way, the Jacks Chats you did with Matt Zimmer, the Jacks Chat back in April, highly recommend. Google it. Brian Bergstrom, Zimmer, Jacks Chats about Bergie being back.
Yeah,
and how being a head coach was a great perspective for you to have for a couple of years to come back and then and lead one unit. But you said that in many ways it's the same as the Stiegelmeier days, and in some ways it's different. Like days like these, practices, the operation in general. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think the reason that my family and I came back is because of the place that it is and the people that it holds.
Yeah.
You know, SDSU is a special place because of the people ultimately. So much of that is the same.
Yeah.
In terms of the high character and quality of the people and the culture. And but college football is different than it was a few years ago or a few weeks ago.
I should look into that.
So some of the way we operate is different, and this is a new team. You know, it's a new staff. So I think it's a unique combination of coming back home to a place I'm very familiar with, but it's also very fresh and new as well.
How would you describe the defensive unit you've been working with up until this very point? Like, what have you seen out of them?
Well, I told him this morning that I don't know that I've seen a group grow as much as this group has. And we could look at it from all the way to last season, but we could also look at it in the last 11 practices. And I've been fortunate to be around a lot of good coaches and a lot of good players and some high caliber national championship type defenses.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen one that has grown like this one. We still have work to do, but so much improvement and just such a fun group to be around.
In what ways has it grown?
We know each other better. The players know each other better. The players know the coaches better. The coaches know the coaches better.
Well,
the coaches know the players better. And then we all understand the system and the scheme better.
Yeah.
So what I've seen the most from our guys, and it's been so exciting, and it's a credit to our coaches coaching at a high level, but our guys learning at a high level, is using the system to solve problems on the field by themselves. Like, if we're doing our job as coaches, we don't need to solve every problem for them. We need to teach them the tools to do it.
Can your mind race to any moment in August camp, since we're that close to the season, you're getting close to game situations, where you saw something pop, a player or a unit made a huge play that they may have not made at this time last year, as an example of this kind of growth that you've been seeing?
I think it was around practice 5 or 6. I'd be lying to say I remember. All the days kind of run together right now.
Was there a moment?
But there was a moment in time where we clicked off a fair amount of communication before a play.
Yeah.
Our offense does a great job of moving around and making things confusing on you at times. And we made the play, and then the confidence that ensued in a good way, like a humble and hungry confidence. If I were to look back, I would say that's like a microcosm of what's been happening throughout this camp.
Okay. I look at last year's defensive stats, just like rankings nationally, pretty good in a lot of areas. 13th total defense, 24th scoring defense, 10th in turnover margin, 8th third down conversions. What metrics do you look at the most that are most important to you, and in particularly ones that you thought you really honed in on in the off season before you got out on the field, and certainly since you've been out here?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, the number one stat or analytics or the thing we're looking at is winning the game. And whether,
that's
and
the head coach in you.
Yeah, then that's the head coach in me.
Yeah, I get it.
But I have also gained perspective in coaching as well, that if we win 7-6, great. If we win 76-75, great. Like, it doesn't matter, you know. But at the end of the day, points is number one. We want to limit points.
Yeah.
And we believe that looking at takeaways, red zone efficiency, third down efficiency, limiting explosive plays like big plays by the offense, and then us creating havoc plays. Those would be the metrics that we're looking at on a game-to-game basis.
What needed to improve most on this defense?
I think the consistency, and you can just look at the box scores. You don't even need to watch the games. You look at the box scores of our team last year, our defense last year, and it was 2 up and down, where we played at a high level at times, and we played at a really low level at times. And that, where I've seen growth, going back to a question a few minutes ago, is we are a much more consistent defense right now as well. So we got to keep that up.
When a season ends the way it does, everybody except for the national champion finishes, that makes the playoffs, finishes on a loss. But, gave up a lot of points in that game. So did everybody who played Montana last year. But do you then, when you go back to the drawing board to try to elevate your defense to be a national championship caliber defense this year, how much do you go off of that game and that bar, or do you not?
It's a combination. I think you have to look at the season in whole. You got to look at how you manage the wear and tear of the season. If you turn on our Sac State film and watch us fly around, just watching guys run and then watching them run, whether they were even doing the right thing or not, or it was a good call by me or not, we were a worn down football team by the time we were at Montana. So that we got to manage, and I think we're doing a good job of managing our guys' reps and making sure that we're healthy for the long haul. And we were. That's the thing about the last game, is that's always the freshest in your memory. Yeah. So it's hard to get rid of. You want to get back out on the field. And it's been in our defensive meetings on the way out of the tunnel at Montana after getting beat in the playoffs. I took a picture up. There's a long ramp up Montana, and I took that picture at that time, saying it was just kind of symbolic in that moment. We got a long way to go. The journey back. And I've kept that up in my office and showed the defense to them. So if you're asking if I still remember it, I do. And it's motivating to me and to us.
2 player-specific questions. And I'm going to lump one of those 2 questions with 2 players just in lieu of time. Because I don't want you to be the last guy that gets up there.
We got a picture coming up.
Reese Kirschman and Chase Van Tol, not having players of that impact, what kind of a difference did it make when you lost them? If you can give us an example, and then obviously having them back.
Yeah, when you look at really good football players, they have the ability to know what they're doing and to play at a really, really, really high level and fast level, and almost like on the edge of out of control, but they're not. And that's part of their strength. And I think both of them play at a speed and a good recklessness and a almost like they don't care if it doesn't go well, you know. And I think you got to do that. You got to risk not making the play to make a play.
Okay.
And I think both those guys have it, and they have fun. And and they're fast and athletic and bendy, and they have fun and playing the game. You just see their joy.
The other, and this is where we'll end it, and I can't get you out of here without asking about Carter Sitzman. Why did he captivate you from Wayne State to bring him in, and what have you seen from him since he got here?
Yeah, I think. I remember Carter. I remember Carter when he was in high school. I remember I was in that league at Winona State playing against him, so I remembered the name. And when we found out that there might be a possibility of him being in the portal and getting him, we were super excited. And I think his ability to, similar to the 2 guys we just talked about, and Reese and Chase Van Tol, that play at a high speed. And he's got physical gifts, and he never takes a play off. It's constant. It's constant, and you can see that when you turn the film on. And a lot of times when you either know it's a yes or a no when you watch the film, and it's not always one specific reason, but it's pretty clear when you watch him.
Looking forward to seeing it on Saturdays. Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate it, John.
Brian Bergstrom, defensive coordinator here on Happy Hour. Jackrabbit Media Day with the head of the SDSU offense. He is Eric Eidness, and I was going to rattle off how many cumulative years has it been now here at South Dakota State?
This will be starting 18.
18.
Yep.
And please don't give the old line that makes you feel old. What is it like doing it that many times, coming into it again this time?
Yeah, every year's a
Exciting?
new year.
Yeah.
It really is, because the kids change. Obviously, their staff changes. And us being a new staff last year together, working together. So there's always a different focus, and especially on your personnel. I think back to when Zenner was playing, and then he got done, and you had Winnicky and Goddard, and then they got done, and then all of a sudden, it was Cade Johnson, and you always have to kind of work around those guys. So I think this year, guys being in year 2 with us, and then just looking ahead to the season and what we think we can do well. It creates a newness to it, and so I don't look at it as like, man, I've done this a lot of times. I look at it more as like the challenge that lies in front of us. So.
Sure. Look, it's a very popular line, a stock line, that everything's more advanced this year because a lot of the same guys are back. But also last year, some people were meeting each other for the first time in fall camp because of the spring portal. So I'd love to know in which specific ways, and you can break through multiple ones, about how things are more advanced, particularly on the offense at this time of year compared to 2 weeks before last year's opener.
Yeah, I think knowing the kids, knowing what they're capable of doing, being able to put the right things in front of them to focus on, then in the off season, being able to really be able to take guys' games, critique them from the season, what they should work on to get better, what we think they can become, and setting goals and a vision for them is something that way. And then I just think guys working together. I mean, that is a big thing, because the more they work, when we're not around, I always tell them, like, hey, what you do in the dark comes really, really bright in the light, And so if you haven't been working, everybody's going to know. If you've been working on stuff and it looks really good, we know you've been putting in the time and doing the work. And so a lot of guys bought into that and really wanted to get better. The impressive thing to me is when the starters, the seniors, the upperclassmen noticeably get better, then they're trying to become great at what they do, and that's really gratifying and fun to see as a coach.
Hey, you love the line players, not plays. Yep. Everybody talks about how cool it would be to be an OC, to design and call plays, and it is cool, right? And you went through a very philosophical and in-depth conversation about that with Matt Zimmer. I highly recommend people just Google it. Jack Chats, Zimmer, Eric Eidness. But let's get to this year's players and plays. You famously were, okay, we have Zach Zenner, we're going to pound the ball. We have Taryn Christian and Jake Winnicky and Dallas Goddard. Okay, we're going to be more of an air assault. What do these players present for you?
Yeah, I think we can be a very balanced offense this year. Whether that's 55 run, 45 pass. I think you have RPOs built in there, so that always can skew things depending on how a defense wants to play you. I think Chase's ability to see more things. Obviously he grew up a quarterback, but this was his first year really being a college quarterback, and the growth that happens, like when Taryn Christian played as a true freshman, after that spring and that off season, he was so much better. And I look at what Chase is seeing right now and the way he's executing, and the confidence he has in the guys around them that they're going to do what he signals and stuff like that. I think the freedom to do that is starting to show through, and so just excited just to see how those guys get on the same page. But I think the biggest thing is how do we get the ball to the guys that can make differences, and Chase understands that, and we like, hey, this guy's good at this, or we need to get this guy a touch. When you build your openers, you're trying to make sure the ball gets in the hands of 2 or 3 guys early to try to get them going. And I think not only from a staff standpoint we're understanding, but I think from a player standpoint, and more importantly Chase, to get them the ball and do those things, I think really is evident as we go through this stuff, and it's exciting to see him just operate that way.
You may have answered some of my question, but when you say the way he sees things, give us some examples of things you've seen, especially recently, knowing we're getting closer and you're doing more game-like situations, of the layers he's added to his game. When you say he's seeing things, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, one example would be this morning at practice. We've got a play called, and the number one receiver to the field is going to run an out. Well, he saw the coverage was no high safeties, cover 4. So he signaled post to Graham. Graham caught it for a touchdown about 55 yards. I mean, it's just, and to the average person watching, they would think, oh, that's awesome. What a great deal.
Yeah.
They don't understand what went into it, right? Like Chase has to recognize the coverage. He has to understand that there isn't blitz coming. Then he signals. Graham has to see the signal. Then they go out and everybody does their 111th, and then all of a sudden it's a big play for us. So, but it's cool, and getting the receivers and the quarterbacks oftentimes in the same room to have the receivers hear what the quarterbacks are thinking is really, really important, because then when they look up and they see that, they know, hey, Chase might be doing this now. I got to make sure I'm paying attention to what he's thinking. So seeing that, he has a lot of run checks that we do in our system, getting the play run to the correct side, whether it's by the front of the defense, whether it's by the numbers of the defense, and just knowing like what plays we want to run with blitz, what plays we want to run into blitz. And so there's a lot that goes through a guy's head.
Oh my gosh.
When you got that play clock and it's ticking down, and he's understanding and seeing it. Just the progression we go through from a quarterback standpoint with safeties, eyes, leverage, those things. He's just getting to the answers so much faster and understanding that, and that's exciting, because the stuff that you're teaching, the stuff that's being taught is you're seeing it on the field, and that's when it gets really fun to play quarterback and really fun to coach a quarterback.
How much easier is it to dial up either more risky plays or more explosive plays, or when you add Lofton Ogrowski back to the wide receiver arsenal?
Yeah, really, really. I mean, he is through fall camp right now. We're averaging just under 20 yards of completion to him, which is awesome. And I think just the guy catches the ball, he tracks the ball. People talk about 50-50 play. Like I told Chase, I go, it's like 80-20, 90-10, like in our favor. So put the ball where he has a chance to go get it, and he's going to go get it. And having that confidence to be able to have a receiver that you can do that with. Taryn had it with Jake Winicky. Like I just got to put it up there and give him a chance to go get it. He was going to go get it. So I think when that chemistry is there, but really the belief and just the understanding of, what a defense is trying to do, then it makes it easier to do that. So, getting Lofton back and finding creative ways for him to touch the ball is exciting.
Running back room, who's emerging, or does it feel like it's going to be more of running back by committee?
I think that we're preparing like it's going to be more of a committee right now. I think as the season goes on, part of it is durability too, and just being able to carry the ball a number of times. That was one thing with Zach. Our goal was no more than 25 carries in a game. It really was 22 carries and 3 extra touches on screens or things. I don't know that we have a guy in the room that's physically and mentally ready to do that yet. So I think we have to kind of a little bit more committee. I think we'll probably, Corey Blair, Josiah Johnson have really become pretty consistent. James Basinger Jr. I mean, all 4 of them have done really good things. But it takes a lot to be the guy, and everybody wants to be that guy, but the training, the conditioning, the stuff that goes into it, the amount of things that Zenner would do, from yoga to extra stretching to saunas to cold tubs. I mean, it's a lot, and you throw that many extra things into a day where you've got to carve out that time to do it. Not everybody is disciplined enough to do that. And our great backs that have been here, whether it was Zenner, Brady Mangarelli, Pierre Strong, when I was here, all those guys were bought into doing those things. They weren't just talented; they were committed to the process. So,
Oh man, I went back to look at a bunch of offensive statistics and metrics, and there are the ones that go beyond the at first blush total offense, total rushing, passing, scoring offense, all that stuff, and where you ranked. But then I thought, is it fair to go back to your overall statistics when you were without Chase for 4 or 5 games? I mean, how different of an offense was that to live in, and how do you go about trying to decide what you need to get better and how you get better at it this year when that was almost half your season?
Yeah, it was a tough stretch, and when we first got here, just building and putting together a roster, we knew we needed to continue to get better in that room, the quarterback room, and we felt like Chase's development was really good, but then we're really young behind him, right? It was all redshirt freshmen and true freshmen basically, and so from that standpoint, we had to keep it simpler.
Yeah,
we had to do things that, and then we didn't have Lofton during that stretch, and so that would have been helpful, for a quarterback to have a guy that to that level, and just getting him the balls in some different ways, right, to take some pressure off of the quarterback. But
the stats and productivity would have been a lot higher.
it certainly wouldn't have hurt, right?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing, the stat that matters most is wins and
of course
losses. And every week we went into it trying to figure out how could we best win, between the defensive game plan, the offensive game plan. Dan looks very heavily at special teams, like can we steal a possession there, all those things. And so there was a lot that went into it. But really, part of it too, just not being around those guys coming in, it was what are they capable of? You have an idea, but until they get on the field, I had a good idea of what Chase could do going into spring, coming out of spring, going into summer, coming out of summer last year. And so the growth was really, really good, and just his understanding of what we wanted to do. Now it's at another level. And last year, the guys behind him, maybe not quite as much of a foundational understanding of what they would do best.
Okay.
And so, being able to find those things, you obviously want to win the game, what you don't want to do is lose the game.
Okay.
If that makes difference.
Of course.
And I always tell guys, do you hate to lose or do you love to win? There's a difference within those things. And if you hate to lose, that means your preparation is going to be outstanding. You're going to do everything it takes, to put yourself in that position. Well, me as a coordinator, I have to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
How can I help him be successful, within that? And so we all grew, but I know that room is really elevated. The guys behind Chase now, the way they're playing, the things they're seeing, the stuff they're thinking is at a much higher level than it was a year ago. And, hopefully we don't have to see some of those guys play this year, but or maybe if we can get ahead in some games, they get some opportunities to do that. But I'm confident if they go into the game, we're going to be in good shape.
Have you found that number 2 yet?
It's a battle right now.
Okay.
Between Josh Holst and Henry.
Okay.
And we've kind of just tried to give them balanced reps, even reps. I feel like we played 3 quarterbacks last year, so we got to keep developing guys. They're, especially Henry is still really young, and so to settle in on strictly a number 2 and not develop along the way, because one guy, just a little more development could push him past somebody. And so excited about that and just his growth with Henry and Josh. And so probably as we get right to game week, then we'll settle in and when we start running scout team and doing those things. But all 3 will be with me.
Okay.
So
you've answered one of the top few questions fans want to know about. So that's where we are on this day, August 12th. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Eric Eidness, your offensive coordinator. Happy hour. Thanks.
Welcome to Happy Hour. Guest correspondent, I guess, Zach Borg. Volleyball head coach Dan Georgalas. If you can't tell, there's a little bit of a height difference here, Coach, but excited to get the volleyball season going. I know your squad last year, another NCAA tournament berth, but a lot of, as the football players would say, meat on the bone. Certainly a little disappointment not getting the Summit League tournament title. Competitive match in the NCAA tournament. How are they feeling coming back into this season?
Yeah, I think it's really fun. We've got a group who's got a lot of success to celebrate over the last couple seasons, yet we still feel like there's unfinished business. We've got a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. We haven't won the championship game the last 2 years. Although getting NCAA at-large bids is a great accomplishment, this group is really motivated to kind of finish the season a little differently, and I think that's just going to be a lot of fun to work throughout the season.
Got 8 returning starters. Sylvie Gunz, I hope I got that pronunciation right, was a player of the year. As a coach, how much of a luxury is that, or do you have to maybe find new ways to challenge a team when you have that many returning?
Sylvie's a great teammate, and I think what's fun for us as coaches is even being player of the year consecutive years, All-American 2 consecutive years, she's better now than she's ever has been. So I think our conference is in for a heck of a player this year. What she's doing in our gym and what she did in the spring this past year is the best volleyball she's ever played, and we're really excited for what professional opportunities she has after South Dakota State.
On this schedule certainly kind of reflects the fact that you have a veteran team with high expectations. The one that a lot of people noticed right away, September 2nd, a little old team called Nebraska. They're kind of known in these parts, and as you mentioned at Media Day, it's going to be the highest attended volleyball match in state history. What is this like for your program to bring them in? Obviously, there's some Bergen-Riley connection, I'm sure, that helped bring them here, but to have this match in this building with what they're going to be doing, what they are, what's it mean to your program?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome day to celebrate our community, from campus to Brookings to Jackrabbit Volleyball. It's just going to be an awesome event to be able to sell at our arena for the first time, have the highest attended volleyball match in the history of the state of South Dakota. I think is going to be a really, really cool event. But bringing Nebraska here, Bergen and her older sister Reagan played for us and broke records, is a really fun layer to the story. But we've got to give credit to the programs like Nebraska who transcend our sport and continue to push boundaries. They're playing matches in Wrigley Field and Dallas Cowboys Stadium and First Bank and Trust Arena. So we're grateful to be on their schedule, to Coach Danny for bringing her team here. We give credit to them and what they do for college athletics and females in sport across the country. And it's just going to be an awesome day to celebrate the yellow and blue.
Oh, by the way, you're also playing at the Pentagon against Washington and Minnesota. I mean, it maybe gets a little lost because Nebraska's coming up here, but this is just a dynamite non-conference schedule, including some of your road matches, too.
Yeah, we played one Big Ten team last year, and we're victorious. We beat Illinois first weekend of the season. Now we play 3 Big Ten teams. So you add in Kansas, which was another Sweet 16 team. We've really scheduled tough, top 40 schedule in the country again this year. You can't get those at-large bids if you don't play these type of teams. So that's a result we're not really worried about. We're going to focus on our process and working hard in our preparation, and we'll go one match at a time.
And I think that's kind of a good way to cap it off because it's just amazing. A couple of years ago when you started this program, I didn't even hit double-digit wins at the start, and now you're at this level. You don't want to rest on the laurels, but man, what a rise it's been. Back-to-back at-large bids, to the NCAA tournament. Do you take a step back, or do you just kind of keep building right now?
No, I'm so proud of the transformational story that is Jackrabbit Volleyball. But our first match, which was the spring of 2021, because our first season was canceled due to the pandemic, our first match had 255 fans. Now we're here celebrating a future sellout in just a couple of weeks with consecutive championships. I think Jackrabbit Volleyball is one of the best transformational stories there is in our sport, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Dan Georgalas with South Dakota State Volleyball. Back at Happy Hour with SDSU Media Day, talking to South Dakota State soccer coach Brock Thompson. Another successful year last year. You get back to the NCAA tournament. What's the outlook as you come into another one here, looking to get back to the big dance and pick up that elusive win for the program, which it hasn't gotten since it made the first one a couple decades ago now?
Yeah. No, honestly, last year was a great, tremendous ride. We had a pretty big amount of turnover going into that year and knew it was going to be a year that it was going to take some teaching from that, just because we turned over almost a double senior class with the COVID kids and the non-COVID kids like the year before. But really proud of the group and how they came together. It was probably one of the closest teams that we've had, connection and culture-wise, and now we reap the benefits of having a number of returning players coming back. So excited for this year too.
You did lose one notable one, obviously Harrisburg's Haley Christensen. She goes to the University of Minnesota. The transfer portal hits everybody at every sport nowadays, but you still have a lot coming back. Your goalie is returning. She's terrific. She was the goalkeeper of the year. What do you like about this year's mix in particular?
Yeah, I think the attacking ability that our team has is pretty special. We like I mentioned earlier today, we return 8 players that have all Summit League accolades, and most of those are attacking players. And so we can score in a variety of ways from a variety of places. And I think that makes this team unpredictable. It makes it hard to play against. It makes it hard to defend. And super excited to kind of, for the journey that this team is going to take.
Are the seniors a little upset with you that they're not going to be around next year when that brand new stadium opens just across the way here over at Dakota Layers Stadium?
Well, honestly, the NCAA bailed me out because all of the seniors have the option to be around that next year. So we had 6 seniors on this year's team. 4 of them have decided to take another year, so they'll be seniors this year and 5th years that year. So honestly, they weren't upset at me. It was kind of their choice. So we just have a few that, one that finishes school in December, and a couple more that just are ready for either grad school or the next phase of life.
I mean, on a more serious note, I think you were the last program that's really off campus, and not that Fishback hasn't had some great moments. You've won a couple of Summit League tournaments there, but can you even quantify what this is going to mean to be on campus at what looks like just going to be a beautiful facility, Dakota Layers Stadium? You've now got your own home, the whole athletic department now really in this one area right around here.
Yeah, it's transformational. It's certainly transformational for our program. I just look at it this way: we have recruits on campus. Many of our recruits come different times of the year than on game days, and so we don't take them out to Fishback. And so now and some of it's just because where it's located. Fishback looks great on game days. Our facility crew does a really good job. Obviously, we've been really difficult to play at Fishback, but to be able to have a recruit, to be able to go from our facilities to our competition facility by just walking across the street will be transformational for our program. It'll be transformational for our workflow as a program, but it will also be transformational for campus. If you look at where it's going to go, it's really going to complete that kind of quadrant of campus. Right now, it looks a little bit like an empty lot in a really high-class housing development with what we have here at South Dakota State. And so for that to be kind of the final piece, I think it fits perfectly.
Well, they've been the power of the Summit League without the new stadium. Just imagine what it's going to look like when Dakota Layers Stadium is finished. Jackrabbit Soccer, big plans, though, to send Fishback out on a great year. For Brock Thompson, I'm Zach Borg. You're watching Happy Hour.
You need anything else, John?
No, I think I'm good, Greg. I think I'm going to tap out.
All right. Have a good night.